All right, let's shift our focus rather back to politics. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has delivered the closing remarks at the National Executive Committee meeting. The NEC meeting took place this weekend. Now, to discuss this further, we're joined by political analyst Zamokuhle Mbandlwa. Zamokuhle, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. Firstly, your views of that address, particularly the NEC's position or resolutions around energy, as well as the electoral amendment bill and just the cost of living, what we've heard from the president.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and good evening to you and to the viewers at home. Well, I want to say, before I touch base on what the president has spoken about, I would like to say I'm really disappointed. It's not what I've expected, the report. I know it's just a media briefing, but perhaps the country at large was expecting a very comprehensive report. Since this is the last NEC meeting, but the meeting, the report shows that the meeting was ordinary, as they already said, it was an ordinary NEC meeting. Perhaps to look at what we have spoken about, you need to look at the leadership deficiencies, because if there was an effective leadership, we're not going to have economic deficiencies and also the problem at ESCOM. Now, I was hoping that perhaps they will talk about the leadership deficiencies in the ANC at a national level and maybe coming up with solutions so that in the future, the ANC will not face the same challenges that it has went through during this particular term of office of the NEC of the ANC. Unfortunately, they did not talk about that. Now, if you look at what is happening at ESCOM and the economy of the country, you will tell that it's because those who have been deployed to sit in various structures, whether it's an ESCOM board or whether it's any board that speaks about the economy of the country, you will see that there's a leadership deficiency. And based on what they spoke about, what the president has spoken about today, you'll recall that in 2012, they've adopted and passed the policy which is called NDP. But this year, the NDP was actually celebrating 10 years of implementation. But if you look at the stages that they've set for themselves, you could not go and say they've achieved this and that in this particular area. Like, for example, the president spoke about NHI. But if you look at the NHI itself, you can tell that there's no improvement in our health system in the country. Yet they speak about NHI and the implementation.
Just basically that they'll forge ahead. Just basically that they'll forge ahead. Yes. Similar with the energy crisis, it's that they'll continue to engage their deployees to somehow encourage them to rid the country of the current load shedding. But not very much meat or detail there. I don't know if it was perhaps a high-level summation, but there would have been robust debate around these issues.
Yes, definitely. You know, that's why when I opened our discussion, I said there's a leadership deficiency. You cannot do anything if there's a leadership deficiency. You have to deal with issues of leadership. And if you have the same leaders in the NEC of the ANC who are still going to be deployed in all these critical positions, you are likely to see a decline on what the country have at the moment, particularly on energy and also in the economy. Because it's not an issue of lack of resources in the country. I would like to disagree with those who say we don't have enough resources. But the problems that comes with our challenges in the country is in terms of the leadership deficiencies. And I was hoping that maybe the ANC in this particular, what they call ordinary NEC meeting before the national conference, I was hoping that they were going to criticize themselves as the leaders of the NEC to say, we have failed to deliver 1, 2, and 3. We have failed as the leadership. How do we move forward? How do we resolve the problem that we have at the ANC level, in all structures, including the NEC? And how have we failed in government? What is it that they need to do differently from what they've done in the past 5 years?
No, it is interesting because one would have expected some sort of an assessment of the NEC, how they fared in this term, now that it comes to a close. And what really set the tone, or perhaps led us to believe that there would be an assessment of their effectiveness, was Ms. Nomvula Mkonyane just before that NEC meeting, where she was quite critical of the NEC collectively, that they have disbanded all their leagues. They really have been ineffective. But then we come out, it's a thank you to the NEC and hopefully to run a smooth conference, but not very critical of themselves in this particular address.
Yes, in fact, based on what the president has spoken about today on his report or in his briefing, it simply means that there is no sense of urgency. Everything is normal. There is no abnormality in the country and in the ANC. So in other words, if they don't see anything wrong in the ANC at a national and all other structures of the ANC nationally, it means that everything will remain the same. They will do the same thing that they've done over the past 5 years. And we are likely to see changes in the ANC, particularly in the public service delivery, because, of course, in government, we need people that are going to come with changes. If you are deploying the same people in the NEC, same people in government, we are likely to see no changes in the government. So I was hoping that maybe they will touch base on that. The president would say, these are the things that you have done wrong, and this is how we want to improve moving forward. So that even in 2024, they were not going to have a serious challenge of campaigning for elections. But now, if you look at what has happened now and reflect back on what has happened last year in the local government elections, you can tell that the ANC do not see anything wrong at a national level, because they have not said, because this is a golden opportunity that they have lost to say, as the NEC of the ANC in our last NEC meeting, these are the things that we have reflected on. Moving forward, believe the ANC, because in 2022 national conference, we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Then so that it will be, they remain relevant to the society. But based on what the president have spoken about, they don't see any agency, nothing wrong in the ANC. Everything is like as business as usual.
On
so
the
that's
coalitions?
the problem that I've.
And then on the coalitions, what are your views there? Because basically he noted that there tends to be instability where the coalitions are. But knowing that 2024, at least according to analysts such as yourselves, we are moving into that era of coalitions. Did this statement perhaps inspire confidence that they are looking to put together or conceptualize another way for coalitions to work, or they're just noting that at this point they're struggling, there's just instability?
It is very difficult to deal with issues of coalition at this point, particularly because, you know, municipalities are actually in regions, and the regions themselves, they have their own perspectives, or they have their own mandates from the branches of the ANC within their jurisdiction. So it becomes very difficult for the provincial leadership and for the national leadership to intervene, because if you look at what has happened recently, as early as latest as last week, on what has happened at Ekurhuleni, you can tell that regardless of what the NEC and the PC is saying about the coalition, but the regional leadership, because they are the ones who are more involved in municipalities. They are the ones who are actually making decisions. And that alone creates a view that even at a national level, if there is a coalition government at a national level, the national leadership is well placed to deal with issues of coalition, and the provinces and regions cannot actually determine who the ANC is dealing with or working with during the coalition government. So it's really a very difficult situation for the president and for the NEC itself to deal with issues of coalition.
No, it's very, very interesting, and that one is very important for the stability of the country, because many would have assumed that there would have been something similar to what the Democratic Alliance has brought forward. I mean, they have some sort of a plan. Many have criticized it. Some actually welcomed aspects of it. But you would think that the leader of society would also put suggestions on the table to ensure that coalitions work. But it seems there was nothing on that front, just acknowledging the instability that we're seeing now. Mr. Mbandlwa, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for your insights. That is a political analyst, Zamokuhle Mbandlwa.